said it before and I will say it again. Lately, at the moment, when it comes to reading, whether that is my scripture study and my Bible reading or my fiction reading, I have been on an insane David kick at the moment. Anything to do with David, 1st and 2nd Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, all that kind of stuff. I have just been absorbing and eating up the Psalms, the Proverbs. Like, that is where my headspace has been in the last few months, and I am enjoying it. I'm not complaining, but today I wanted to do an old-fashioned Jenna Van Mourik style recommendations episode for you guys and talk about a bunch of biblical fiction books that take place either in or around David's life from the perspective of people in his life and people he knew, from, Saul to Bathsheba to his wives and mighty men and all the people that interacted with him or lived in that time period. So that's kind of, what I'm going to be talking about today. And I've kind of tried my best to arrange some of these in order of when they might take place, like chronologically, but it might not be a perfect list, so I do apologize for that. But let's get into it. The first book I wanted to shout out is a book that is available for you to pre-order right now, and that is Voice of the Ancient, The King's Men by Connie Lynn Cassette. And this one is an upcoming book. It should be released in August of 2023. It's expected August 15th of 2023 from Bethany House Publishers. I am just so excited for this one. And this one takes place specifically during King Saul's reign, so not quite to David yet, but a little bit before. And I haven't read it yet because it hasn't come out yet, obviously, but it's one that I just cannot wait to have on my shelf. First of all, the cover is gorgeous, but second of all, Connie Lynn's writing style is just always gorgeous, so I'm really looking forward to that. But to read you guys the back cover blurb of it, as the eldest son of a Levite and a Philistine, Avidan is torn between his duty to his family legacy and the desire for something more. When Ammonites attack the city of Yavash Gilead, he takes the opportunity to fight with his cousins for the newly crowned King Saul. But when one of the cousins goes missing during battle, Avidan stays behind to search for him in hopes that he's still alive. Kezia is the daughter of one of the most powerful clan chiefs in the territory of Manasseh. On the brink of a forced marriage to a loathsome man decades older than her, she has no choice but to run. Dressed as a boy, she takes her horse and heads for the south, hoping to find sanctuary with her mother's family. Battling to survive the dangers surrounding them, Avidan and Kezia make a pact to travel together. As Kezia's true origins are revealed and Avidan's search for his cousin becomes increasingly futile, they must not only rely on each other to stay alive, but learn to trust the true and eternal King of Israel to guide their every step. So if that doesn't sound exciting and riveting and suspenseful and romantic, as all of Connie Lynn Cassette's books are, I don't know what does. I am so excited to read that one. And again, it is like King Saul, so not quite to David yet, but I'm just so looking forward to the series and where it's going and all of that. So yeah, be sure to check out that one and pre-order if you can, or maybe, when it comes out, request it at your local library or something like that. But Connie Lynn Cassette's books are just such a treasure in the world of biblical fiction, and the world of biblical fiction is just so blessed by her voice. So I just wanted to shout that out and talk about it with you guys because I could not be more obsessed with it already. The next book that I wanted to discuss with you is The Prince, which is like a novella by Francine Rivers, and you can get this either by purchasing it on its own as a standalone or in the Sons of Encouragement novella collection, which includes the stories as well as Bible studies to go along with them if that's your kind of thing, as it definitely is mine. And The Prince is specifically the biblical story of Jonathan from Francine Rivers' perspective. So the back cover blurb says, "His zeal carried him into battle. His faithfulness won him honor among his people. His humility led him into friendship with the man who would become king in his place. David was a man after God's own heart, but it was the courage and selflessness of his best friend Jonathan that opened the door to David's rule. a man of honor and deep faith. The Prince is the story of Jonathan, and book 3 in the popular Sons of Encouragement series about 5 men who quietly changed eternity. So you don't have to read the other books or the other novellas, short novels in this series in order to understand them. They're not connected. And for me, one of my favorite parts about this whole series is that they are included with Bible studies and questions for you to think on, and scripture verses and passages for you to read that kind of keep you rooted in the Word while also giving you sort of ideas about what else might have happened in the story, or the context surrounding the story, and why what's in the Bible matters so much and mattered to God's people as it was happening, right? So that book came out in September of 2005, and again, it's available as a standalone and in Kindle or hardcover, or as a collection of all 5 stories, which are about Aaron, Caleb, Jonathan, Amos, and Silas. And that's available in Kindle or paperback as well. The next book that I wanted to talk about with you guys is actually a series, and it's a trilogy, and it's the Wives of King David series by Jill Eileen Smith, which is a biblical fiction series set in ancient Israel during the reigns of King Saul and King David. So it kind of, these books sort of follow a longer period of David's life and that time period. And they begin with Michal, which is book 1. And this is the summary or book blurb for that one is: as the daughter of King Saul, Michal lives a life of privilege, but one that is haunted by her father's unpredictable moods and by competition from her beautiful older sister. When Michal falls for young David, the harpist who plays to calm her father, she has no idea what romance, adventures, and heartache await her. As readers enter the colorful and unpredictable worlds of King Saul and King David, they will be swept up in this exciting and romantic story. Against the backdrop of opulent palace life, raging war, and desert escapes, Jill Eileen Smith takes her readers on an emotional roller coaster ride as Michal deals with love, loss, and personal transformation as one of the wives of King David. A sweeping tale of passion and drama. Readers will love this amazing story. And personally, I couldn't agree with that more. The Wives of King David series and the Daughters of the Promised Land series by Jill Eileen Smith are by far my favorite books by her. I just could gush over both of those series forever. Oh, and the Wives of the Patriarch series. How could I possibly forget? But I just loved her first 3 series especially. And this one, I remember, was one of the first books that I talked about in one of my YouTube videos back when I first started out as a book blogger. I had just read it, and I read it so quickly and I couldn't put it down, and I really enjoyed the story overall. So that is one I would recommend. And then it is followed up with Abigail and then Bathsheba, which are both by Jill Eileen Smith. Those series are a part of what got me so invested into biblical fiction. It was her Daughters of the Promised Land series and the Wives of the Patriarchs and Wives of King David, as well as Misu Andrews, the Pharaoh's Daughter, and Connie Lynn Cassette's Out from Egypt trilogy that were the first experiences with biblical fiction, modern biblical fiction that I'd had, and are definitely what turned me on to the genre as a whole. So I would very much recommend those as well. The next book that we have on the list is Bathsheba, Reluctant Beauty by Angela Hunt. And this is a book in her Dangerous Beauty series. It's a Dangerous Beauty novel. And that is also available in, Kindle and paperback and probably wherever else books are sold. It came out in 2015 and was also published by Bethany House Publishers. And, Angela Hunt's books, to me, I classify them as always being so full of research into the time period and into the historical details. And for me, when I pick up an Angela Hunt book, I know that I'm going to get a lot of depth in terms of the history part of the story. For me, it's definitely something I have to prepare for and work up for, because I'm used to reading a lot of character-driven stories and that kind of thing. So when I read an Angela Hunt book, I know that it's going to be really deep and really full of historical facts and research, and it'll usually take me a little bit longer to get through than other books, but it's almost always worth it for me. The summary or the blurb for this one is: a vivid and moving portrait of a reluctant queen. After sending his army to besiege another king's capital, King David forces himself on Bathsheba, a loyal soldier's wife. When her resulting pregnancy forces the king to murder her husband and add her to his harem, Bathsheba Bathsheba struggles to protect her son while dealing with the effects of a dark prophecy and a deadly curse on the king's household. Combining historical facts with detailed fiction, Angela Hunt paints a realistic portrait of the beautiful woman who struggled to survive the dire results of divine judgment on a king with a divided heart. So you can also find another version of Bathsheba's story through Unspoken, the biblical story of Bathsheba, Lineage of Grace series book 4, also by Francine Rivers. So like that series, Sons of Encouragement, the Lineage of Grace series as a whole includes 5 stories of women in the lineage of Jesus, from Tamar to Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. So that's, I enjoyed reading Sons of Encouragement alongside Lineage of Grace. And the summary specifically for the Bathsheba story Unspoken is, her beauty stirred the passions of a king, her pain moved the heart of God. Meet Bathsheba, one of the 5 women in the lineage of Christ. David and Bathsheba's scandalous affair did not end in one night. To many, her name means seduction and sin. Yet God called Bathsheba his own, worthy of the legacy of his son. Learn along with Bathsheba the overwhelming truth that God is willing to restore those lost in the depths of despair who call out to him. Unspoken is book 4 in the popular Lineage of Grace series about 5 unlikely women who changed eternity. So those are kind of 3 different takes or perspectives on David through the perspectives of his wives, and specifically Bathsheba multiple times as well. The next book that I absolutely must recommend to you, because you know that I could not mention David without mentioning this book, would be Defending David by Barbara M. Britton. This is a book that I had the privilege of reading early before it came out so that I could write a blurb for it. And there is not a day that goes by where I do not think about this book and how much it changed me, because it's so beautiful and so well done and so exciting. And honestly, Barbara M. Britton is a gem in general, but this book has got to be one of my most favorites by her, if not my favorite, because it just transported me back to that time period so well. And it portrays a period in David's life where David is older and, he's experienced more. He's sort of, it takes place during Absalom's rebellion. So he's kind of going through a difficult time there, possibly. And it's just a really beautiful story. And I cannot recommend this book to you enough. Like, if you learn nothing from following me on Instagram or listening to my podcast, just, if you take away nothing else but this, take away that Barbara M. Britton is such a wonderful writer of biblical stories, and her books deserve all of the love. The summary for Defending David, Ittai's journey, is: when a quiet journey to Jerusalem turns tragic, newly orphaned Ramona must flee a kinsman set on selling her as a slave. Racing into the rocky hills outside Hebron, Ramona is rescued by a Philistine commander journeying to Jerusalem with 600 warriors. Exiled commander Ittai the Gittite is seeking refuge in the city of David. Protecting a frantic Hebrew woman is not in his leadership plan, although having a nobleman's niece in his caravan might prove useful for finding shelter in a foreign land. Ramona and Ittai arrive in Jerusalem on the eve of a rebellion. In the chaos of an heir's betrayal, will they be separated forever, or can they defend King David and help the aging monarch control his rebellious son? So this is just a beautiful story, and I cannot speak highly of it enough. And then the last book that I wanted to throw on this list of, Saul, David, Solomon-centered novels was Love's Sacred Song, a novel by Misu Andrews. And you guys know how much I love Misu Andrews and her stories. They're always filled with so much depth and character and description and just messages that sort of take on a life of their own. I feel like when you read them, they really just come to life and pull at your heartstrings. And Love's Sacred Song, the summary or the back cover style blurb is: standing in the massive shadow of his famous father, young King Solomon wavers between fear and bravado, wisdom and folly. In the uncertain world of alliances and treachery, Solomon longs for peace and a love that is true and pure, a love that can be his cornerstone. A shepherdess in the northern city of Shunem, Ariella remembers the first time she laid eyes on Solomon in Jerusalem when she was just 7 years old. Since then, she has known that it was her destiny me to become his bride. When her father, a leader of their tribe, secures a promise from King Solomon to marry Ariella as a treaty bride to help unite the kingdom, it seems her dreams may come true. But how can this simple shepherdess live as part of Solomon's harem? Can Solomon set aside his distractions to give himself completely to just one woman, or will he let duty, deception, and the daily routine divide his heart? Misu Andrews expertly weaves the words of the Song of Solomon into this touching story of the power of love. Readers will be transported from the glowing fields of Shunem to the gleaming city of Jerusalem as they experience this rich and textured novel from a master storyteller. So those are, I don't even know how many books, but those are some book recommendations or books to check out if you are interested in that time period surrounding, post-Judges, early kings, and David and Saul and those who followed David. And let me know if you've read any of those or if you have any other recommendations that I didn't mention. Again, I don't know everything, but I share with you guys what I do know and authors I do enjoy or have enjoyed in the past. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Be sure to check out all of the links in the description to this podcast, as well as finding us on social media. I'm personally on Instagram at Jenna Van Mourik, and you can follow me there for my writing journey and personal updates. And then you can also follow along with at Biblical Fiction Buffs as well. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode.